not a lot this week, and to be honest, probably could have skipped it, but the witch made it very clear, if I stop doing this, I die. We said this week I was watching a Blu-ray of Donald Trump's guilty verdict, but the graphic we showed was of a DVD. When I asked what happened, they said, we don't even have the budget for the Blu-ray graphic. We said Trump claiming he never said lock her up was like Bart Simpson claiming he never said cowabunga. We were told cowabunga isn't really a Bart Simpson catchphrase. Would have been better served saying ay caramba or don't have a cow. Interestingly, cowabunga is a Swahili word. Cow means cow, and a bunga means don't have a. Cowabunga, more commonly known as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles catchphrase. First used, however, on Howdy Doody, and I'm guessing that's where Baze got it. I didn't think you were going to be here, Baze. Baze was at the doctor today. He has to keep going. He's trying to have a Scollins removed. Keeps growing back. It was a dramatic prairie dog, not a dramatic chipmunk. I joked that North Dakota farmers would not drive 10 miles to get a coffee, that North Dakota farmers would have coffee machines at home. And I basically said, how dare you call us coastal elites when you say, it was Doug Burgum who said it. And a lot of North Dakota, first of all, I'm very happy a lot of people from North Dakota watch the show. They said, actually, yes, farmers would go into town to get coffee. They wouldn't go in for the coffee. They would go in for the conversation. And farmers, when they start their day, would go to a diner, and somebody said, my uncle was a farmer, and he would bring me to a diner, and I couldn't sit with the farmers because that was the gossip table. And he said it was fine because mostly I just overheard them talking about boat batteries. So North Dakotans, just to clarify, North Dakotans will drive 10 miles for coffee, and South Dakotans will straight up kill a dog if it looks at them funny. That was a Kristi Noem callback. That also brings us to the Jackal Joke of the Week. This was sent in by a jackal. And of all the things the jackals wrote, it was my favorite this week. I guess the name of the segment explained itself. Much like Kristi Noem's dogs, jokes about Kristi Noem's dogs will never get old. Donald Trump is not yet a convicted felon. The title of felon doesn't apply until after sentencing. The proper title to use for him until then is man too dumb to pay off a porn star properly. We said that if Joe Biden would go to prison, he would get his aviators tattooed on. Tattoos is something that happens in prison. I've never been, but I assume, you're just looking for something to do. So there we showed, and somebody said, that's really great. And I even complimented graphics on how good that looked. But they pointed out, you don't tattoo the eyeballs. So it would look more like that. And then it's the worst tattoo. Somebody said Ozempic is a diabetes drug, not a weight loss drug. News out of Tinseltown, diabetes has been eradicated. We said Trump had if he went to prison, he would skip leg day, he would have a G.I. Joe top and a Mr. Potato Head bottom. But the bottom was basically just his regular bottom. And so somebody said, why wouldn't it look like the bottom half of Mr. Potato Head? So I guess I do think that probably would have been, that's a little better. Male ballerinas are called ballerinos. Vinny Ballerinos. Mr. Cotter joke. Foreshadowing. Someone said I don't get your monologue joke about Nick Cage buying dinosaur bones. He once bought one. Nick Cage bought a T-Rex skull and then found out that it had been abducted from Mongolia, illegally, so he gave it back. But he never got his money back. He paid a lot of money and then did the right thing, gave it back to Mongolia. So if you're ever one of those people who's like, why is Nick Cage doing all these movies, you would too if you had lost skull money. T-Rex skull money. Somebody said, hey, Ben is often in sketches, but I never see him in Surprise Inspection. Why is that? We have two kinds of writers on the show. We have those that generate sort of 50 monologue jokes a day, and a lot of them will have, some good ones and some bad ones, and of course the bad ones end up in Surprise Inspection. And then we have writers like Ben, who just every morning, late morning, early afternoon, sort of wake up and just walk to the Hudson River and just look out. And just wait for an idea. I did a vampire last week in corrections, and it was something like that. I thought it was fine. Somebody said it sounded like Larry David. I don't. Why? I don't care for the sucking. Why are we sucking? Drinking, fine. But to suck, just drink. If you bite, the blood comes out. You don't have to suck. There's too much sucking. Someone wrote this. This is not my favorite joke of the week. My favorite Jackal comment of the week. It was brought on by Celebrity Baby Teeth, and we'll get to that. We can't put Celebrity Baby Teeth in the beginning, because, then when we were done with it, everybody would stop watching. I'm 66, and my mom saved my teeth. They're in my drawer with my eye drops. She also saved my tonsils and adenoids from when I had them out at 9 years old. I lost track of them. They were in jars of formaldehyde. Is your mom still alive, or is she just a skeleton in a rocking chair? I said Obama was left-handed. He is left-handed. Unless he's pulling some of that Ted Lasso dart. Some complaints last week about corrections that the captions were ahead of the dialogue. And so they were reading the words before I even said them. So I called YouTube and I said, you're blowing my punchlines. And they said, we didn't think those were punchlines. I said escape last week. A bunch of you jumped in to tell me it's escape. And yeah, that is the correct way to say it, of course. But there are some exceptions. Hope YouTube didn't blow that one. I don't, maybe I just shouldn't even do it. Like the last corrections, I was honest and I said we're about to go on a 2-week hiatus. And a lot of the comments were angry at us. There's this assumption that we're being, lazy and not working hard enough. We're bummed to be on hiatus. You need to know that. But also, I am touched that you're mad about it, that you miss us. So I just want to say, I feel loved. So thank you. But also, shut the up about it. It's not up to us. I can't stress to you, nothing is up to us. I look like a real fat cat. Got my own show, a name in the title. Nothing's up to us. You have as much say in what happens here as I do. Oh, I will say one of the nice payoffs of the 2-week break is we did do a new tag for the closer looks. I'd like to try another one, but I don't know when we're going to use it, Lederman. But it was like, I was a jump scare, and I think it was effective. I think it would be a little scarier if it was like less sudden. So. See. All right, now it's time for celebrity baby teeth. And look, when we started doing this, I thought it'd be fun. It's not, but I have to finish. It could have been worse. Like, we could have done it on the show. I don't even remember where we are, but I'm going to do it. Also, the amount of you were like, oh, you're opening to the middle. Yeah, here's what it is. We printed off the script, we put it in here. I didn't have Ellen make a whole book. It's just this. Nobody's happy about this, but I got to finish. I'd love to bail, but the Guild. Page 4. Displayed on television. And you're wondering if perhaps it's not the normal, upstanding person I presented myself as for decades in the public eye, but rather an avid collector of celebrity baby teeth. Again, it's probably best not to dwell on these questions, as they'll likely only make you feel uncomfortable and a little upset. Instead, why not enjoy looking at Samuel L. Jackson's baby teeth? Oh, look. This one came with a little Kangol on it. I didn't do it. I wanted you to cut to the single and have everybody get excited, but I forgot to read ahead and I didn't do it. So, I hate to do this, but next corrections, we will go back and read this page again, which is a setback for those of us who were hoping to be done with celebrity baby teeth. But again, out of my hands. I don't make the decisions here. All right. See you next week.